It is the Adam Gold Show. How you doing? I am Adam Gold. Victoria on the ones and twos. All right. Way to go, State.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Siri, how do you win and lose at the same time?
Takes a skill. Some kind of skill.
You know, it's funny. I had supreme confidence that the Wolfpack would beat Pitt last night. Pitt has been struggling. I mean, so has State, obviously, but that's how you get in the predicament that State is in. And when everything went final at Lenovo Center on senior night, I flipped over to Notre Dame and Stanford. And I thought, Stanford's pretty good. Got a not a player of the year candidate, although Reno is a dynamite player. Certainly nobody's. It honestly should be unanimous when they vote in the ACC. Cooper Flagg. Honestly, I think Cooper Flagg should win all of the awards.
Yes.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
We're rookie, player, and defensive player of the year. All of them. And then national player of the year. He's the best player in the country.
For his 1 year that he's going to be in college basketball.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It was a debate with who am I drawing a blank on his name? The ESPN radio. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Regardless, doesn't matter. He
Clinton,
was just Clinton Yates. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a debate on Clinton Yates' show that, you know, could Cooper Flagg come back? We'll get to that because it's an interesting discussion, believe it or not. These days, it becomes an interesting discussion. But so I watched the Stanford Notre Dame game and thinking, man, I'd love to see Reno really go off. Stanford beat Notre Dame, and let's at least take it to the weekend. And Notre Dame ends up beating them. Whatever Cole something, whatever his name was, who hit a baseline three to give Notre Dame the lead in the last 15 seconds. That's the guy that beats you. It sucked. It sucked because it was the reality of what we all knew was probably going to happen. Notre Dame wasn't likely to get swept at home by Stanford and Cal. I thought Stanford would win, and then Cal, who's also not that good, thought Notre Dame would beat Cal in the last game of the regular season. But Notre Dame is going to the ACC tournament in Charlotte, and NC State is not. And that is just awful.
It is.
And I don't know how it's going to play out with Kevin Keatts. I think there's a lot of moving parts there. I don't think that they are inclined to make a change. It's difficult when you're coming off off of a Final Four and an ACC championship. We also have to put that in the proper perspective in that was in many ways like a scratch-off lottery ticket win. And not a $5 win. That's like hitting the jackpot on a scratch-off. Like, wow, I just won $200,000. Right? So that's the way that looks in retrospect. And that's the way it should have always been looked at. And so the whole tenure is not awesome. But as I pointed out pretty recently, I'm not sure that NC State athletics, the community, has fully backed Kevin Keatts. Not financially. The support, it all goes to, not all, most of it goes to football. Maybe they've got enough to get one player. And it doesn't lend itself to roster building. I wish that the Wolfpack were doing better in freshman recruiting, and that is part of last night, even though they had a good win, and Breon Pass and Michael O'Connell were really good. Dontrez Styles had a double-double. Like, there was a lot of good last night. But I'm not sure that it was good enough for a lot of reasons, and we'll get to those. We got a lot of things to talk about. It is, in some ways, the calm before the storm, And that's actually where we are going to start as we go. And I will get back to NC State. But I want to start with the Carolina Hurricanes, who play Boston tonight in maybe the most overlooked game of the entire season, because today there is nobody talking about Carolina versus Boston. Nobody is talking about that. Every ounce of focus, whether it's here or across the National Hockey League, is all about, are they going to keep Mikko Rantanen? Are they going to sell to the highest bidder? What's going to happen now? What's going to happen July 1? Blah, blah, blah. All of that. I am not criticizing it. It is the reality. So this is, to me, it's a complicated matter, way more complicated than anybody wants to admit. There's a lot of things moving. It's, the elephant in the room. This is the moose in the room. The moose in the room is Carolina has to determine whether or not they're true contenders, whether or not he is likely to stay here beyond the end of this season, and whether or not it is worth the immediate PR hit to just get what you can for him, which I don't favor, or, see how far you can go with it and then possibly lose him in July. As I've said this many, many, many times, in a scenario where he's not staying, you have to decide when you take the PR bath. Now, tomorrow, or July 1. That's your decision. The complicating factor to all of this is that the Eastern Conference, at least the Metropolitan Division side, if I were the Hurricanes, I would look at it and go, man, it wouldn't take all that much from us to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Certainly different than being on the other side, which Florida, Tampa, and Toronto. I think Washington's had the best year. Those are the three best teams in the East. In this order: Florida, Tampa, Toronto, in my opinion. Those are the three best teams in the East. But Carolina could, again, like I said, they could end up in the Eastern Conference Finals and only have to deal with one of them, and you don't know who it's going to be. It might be Toronto. Toronto might win that division, in which case Tampa and Florida will have to beat the crap out of each other.
They have to recover after last night's beating. Ooh.
It happens, right? So I think Carolina could be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you never know. You roll the dice. And that's what Mikko Rantanen was acquired for, not for this year. And I think it's important to point out what I believe to be the truth from the very beginning when they acquired him. It was never about going all in. Because I know it's going to sound weird when I say this, and I believe that the Hurricanes front office feels the same way about this. And I have not asked them this question, but I believe, because I know they're smart. I think I roundabout just called myself smart. That's bad. I don't believe they thought that this team was an all-in Stanley Cup contender. So any notion that this was an all-in move, to me, is misguided. I always thought that this was a move for the future, and that's the way Eric Tulsky talked about it when they made the acquisition. They hoped to have Mikko come in, establish himself as part of the room, sell him on the way that they do things, the community, the fan base, the teammates, the head coach, all of that. And that when it was all over, they would circle back to Mikko and say, didn't you love it? Don't you love us? Don't you want to stay with us for the next 8 years and make oodles of money? That's what I believe their plan was, for whatever reason, it got accelerated to the point where every 20 minutes, one of the NHL's insiders posts something, goes on TV and says something. Elliot Friedman was on TNT yesterday. He talked about it. Pierre LeBrun on TSN talked about it. Darren Dreger, TSN, talked about it. Nick Kiprio, Sportsnet. Everybody. Every 20 minutes, it's like clockwork. And it is an assault on everybody's senses. I believe that the Hurricanes will keep him. I don't believe they will sell for pennies on the dollar and admit defeat now. I don't. It doesn't make sense to do that. But I do believe this. Somebody comes to them with an offer he can't refuse. I think they'll move. I do. But I just don't see a fit where that happens. It might. It absolutely might. But I don't see a great fit for that to happen. The notion that Carolina would trade Mikko Rantanen to the Florida Panthers, which was thrown out there by Dave Pagnotta of the Fourth Period, friend of this program, a guy I like a lot. He and I talk all the time. The notion that Florida's very interested, Florida can be as interested as they want. There is nothing that the Panthers could offer Carolina that would make them trade him there. Short of offering Alexander Barkov, that ain't happening. I'm sorry. That is not happening.
And he's got a fat contract with them, too.
Carolina would take that in a minute. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I mean,
not tax-free, though, up here.
That wouldn't even be a discussion.
No.
But, so, that ain't going to happen. So we should stop those conversations. But I do believe that the possibility exists that they would move him, but I think it would have to be for something that they simply could not turn down. And I don't think that's happening, so I think they'll keep him. And I think you look at the East on their side, who can't they beat? The Devils right now are an injured mess. If the Devils even stay third, they can beat the Devils. If Columbus catches them, hey, Columbus is good. We know this. They're fast. They're young. They have no fear. It's a good team. And by the way, they're getting pieces back that have been hurt. That won't be easy, but I think Carolina can beat Columbus. And I think it remains to be seen who Washington has to face in the first round. Washington might not even be there. Washington's playing very well, though.
They are. Ovechkin got another goal, too.
Yeah,
now he's 10.
Tom Wilson had 2.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Tom
10
Wilson,
away.
Tom Wilson's got 28 goals.
He's crazy.
I've been saying this for a long time about Wilson. He's a great player. And he has sort of moved past the stupid. And he has become just a great, he really is.
Yeah.
He has moved past the goonery. Hey, he still has those tendencies, but he's moved past that being his trademark.
Yeah.
And now he's just a legitimately good player.
It's kind of like Brad Marchand. You grow out of it.
Yeah, well, Marchand still has rat
he
tendencies,
still has
right?
It, big time.
But he's a great player. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know that Wilson's a Hall of Famer, but he has been a really good player for a long time, and now he's kind of leaning into the production part of it. But Carolina could win 2 rounds and end up in the conference finals, in which case nobody's going to whine if Mikko Rantanen skates into free agency and leaves. Right? The Hurricanes got something out of it. They got a playoff run. And that is a real possibility. Again, I keep pointing this out. There is a reason why Friedman, Dreger, LeBrun, Kyprios, all of these guys, there's a reason why they are treating this as though Rantanen is very much available. They wouldn't be doing this if sources told them, we're not trading him. Shut up. We're not doing this. So I think it's a possibility, but I also think it's an unlikelihood is the way I look at it. All right, let's move on to, and by the way, the Hurricanes do play the Boston Bruins tonight. All right, so NC State both won and lost last night. Obviously, they won because they beat Pitt, scored more points. But they lost because, unfortunately, this is it's the end of the road on Saturday when they play at Miami. It's too bad. I wish they would have been able to stretch it out another game. But there is also a situation where they have nobody to blame but themselves. So, like, not to bring up North Carolina here, as I'm about to bring up North Carolina here. If North Carolina doesn't make the NCAA tournament, there will be nobody to blame but North Carolina. Nobody. This is entirely on them. And this is entirely on NC State. You have a double-digit lead with like 5 minutes to play at Virginia Tech. You can't lose that game. The Hokies are terrible. You can't lose twice to Cal, right? All of the losses that you go, how did we lose that game? Because while they don't have a great team, they have a handful of pretty good players. Breon Pass, by the way, had the Breon Pass game, a career high for him. And he is the rarity, a guy who doesn't play a ton, but still played his entire career at NC State.
It meant a lot, man. You know, Keats recruited me as a freshman in high school, so, you know, that just shows what the loyalty that he had for me. So, you know, when I committed here, I made a promise that, you know, this is where I want to be. And, you know, God led me here. You know, God didn't run me away. God kept me here. So now I'm happy for it. I don't regret my decision, so I'm happy for my decision.
I mean, good for Breon. He had to call it a great career would be a lie, right? He didn't play a ton.
It's a stretch.
But he certainly had moments, and players like it's just such a rarity for guys because everybody wants to play. Nobody goes to to play a sport in college and doesn't want to play. They all want to play. Heck, Jalen Blakes, who I watched last night for Stanford, Jalen Blakes could have stayed at Duke. I mean, man, they had a scholarship crunch, I guess, but I mean, for the most part, he could have stayed. And a lot of guys could stay. They're not kicking anybody out. But guys want to play. So sometimes you just use your first stop to get to your second stop. But, Michael O'Connell didn't start here, right? O'Connell started at Stanford, had a good career at Stanford, made a shot that will put him in NC State / Raleigh lore forever.
So many posters of that everywhere.
Everywhere,
in Raleigh.
right? So, but this was his second stop. And it was a tough year for him and for them. And what did he learn throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, just that, you can just fight through tough times. It's not just because things aren't going your way doesn't mean you give up. Just keep fighting. And I've been super proud of some of the guys. So this year, obviously, like you said, things have been going our way, but guys still show up to practice with a smile on their face and try to get better every day. So I'm super proud of them.
All right, so look, it obviously didn't go well. They got one more game at Miami on Saturday, and then the season is over, and then it's to the drawing board. And again, I don't know what this means for Kevin Keats. I think they are not inclined to move on, but they might. If you take away last year as a miracle run, or if you treat it for probably what it should be, a miracle run, then you'd be justified in saying, man, just not enough over Kevin Keats' tenure. Just not enough. And I would understand that. But I think that there are a lot of things that need to get better at NC State. And if I was making a list of the things that need to improve, I think we would be here a while before we got to the head coach. I think there is a commitment to the basketball program that needs to be reexamined. And if you're not willing to change that, then you should move on. You should let Kevin Keats find another job. And maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe Kevin Keats. To be honest, if I were Kevin Keats, I would consider leaving on my own. This is always fun when I bring up Herb Sendek. Herb Sendek was not fired by NC State. Granted, the climate around Herb Sendek was leave or it's going to get worse for you and your family. And that is a regrettable development in NC State basketball, lore. Because he was a very good coach. But he left. He took the job at Arizona State. And if I were Kevin Keatts, I would look for a spot, even if I had to go drop down, into a smaller league. I would look for a spot where I felt like I was being supported more. This is not about football versus basketball, but it does seem to me that NC State devotes a whole lot more of their efforts and energy and resources towards football, haven't quite gotten the return they really deserve at the expense of basketball. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my perception of what is going on at State. And I keep saying I think the football program is on very good footing. I think Dave runs a great program. They just need to win more.
That's the key.
Yeah. Real quick, back to Kevin Keatts. Here's my biggest criticism of Keatts. At some point this year, you needed to, and last night is senior night, you do what you want on senior night, all bets are off. But at some point this year, you had to lean into the freshman class. Last night, Paul McNeil and Trey Parker combined for 10 minutes. I don't understand why. Again, you won the game, but unless you're cool with those players walking off to another program, I don't get I'm not going to say your best players because I think it depends on the game who your best players are. Although over the last month, it's clear Dontrez Styles has been their best player. I don't get minimizing those two players' impact on so many games. That to me is my criticism of Kevin Keatts. At some point this year, I would have leaned into, hey, these are these two guys, Dennis Parker Jr. too. These guys are the guys we're going to have going forward. So I keep talking about this in terms of bowl games for football. For me, unless I'm going to a major bowl game, I would always look at a bowl game as the start of the following season. So I want to use guys who I'm going to have going forward because it's just a damn exhibition. It doesn't matter. So I want to see guys who are going to be part of my program next year. I'm not concerned about winning the game. Nobody remembers who won the Blue Bonnet Bowl. That's an old bowl game, people. So I would have at some point this year gone, yeah, we're going to lean into Parker. We're going to lean into McNeil, both Parkers, right? And just live with it and let the veteran players kind of spot people. But I would live with those young players. All right. Very quickly, Duke's in a tough spot here. Jay Lucas, the associate head coach, was announced officially as the head coach at the University of Miami. He will be on the bench for Duke's trip to Chapel Hill on Saturday, and then he will leave. I can't remember the last time this happened. This is not after the season. This is during the season, heading into when we define the season.
Especially for Duke.
Right. No, I would say for any school. Mm-hmm. But we are, because of the way college basketball works these days, everybody is defined. Every program, every team is defined by what you do in postseason play. Nobody will remember that Duke is 27-3, except if they don't do well in the postseason, and then we will go, well, what were all those wins for? And Jay Lucas is a big part of why Duke is 27-3. I believe that's their record heading to Chapel Hill. To think otherwise would be to diminish that impact, whether it's recruiting or coaching or game planning, all of that. And they're going to be missing that after tomorrow. After Saturday. So it is a loss. At the same time, if Duke doesn't go far, win a title, blah, 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 I don't think it would be fair to blame his exit for Duke not achieving some goals. But it isn't. It will have an impact, and I think it's super unfortunate that it is getting in the way, but that's where we are. All right, when we come back, Shane Willis, Carolina Hurricanes game analyst, also a former 20-goal scorer in the NHL. We'll talk about Mikko Rantanen and, honestly, just kind of the feeling around the team right now as we get ready for the Canes and the Bruins tonight. Next.
Tell me that you love me, yeah.
It's the Adam Gold Show. I am Adam Gold. Victoria always picks out the appropriate song. We hear this a lot at Lenovo when we're going to a review for goaltender interference, and we rarely hear anything good.
I know, unfortunately.
Yeah. Shane Willis, you know him. You see him on TV, FanDuel, Sportsnet. I know him as a great human being, a man who has developed one of the great youth hockey programs in the NHL, and a guy who scored 20 goals. Also was traded once in the NHL, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. How are you, sir?
I am great, Adam. I'm trying to bring some of the good news to the show today, I guess. I mean, it's not raining. That's good, right?
No, it is not. It is not raining, and they're playing indoors tonight, so even if it did rain, it wouldn't be impacted. Do you sense that there is just this, like, thickness in the air right now, especially from the fan base?
Potentially, because everyone was so excited when the initial move was made, right? And everyone's talking about Mikko Rantanen today all over every sports channel of what's going on as he continues to assess the area, the team, the organization, all of those things. And, I always temper my expectations because I was a player once as well. And, every player has that right to take his time, and he's not going to be forced into something just because it's trade deadline tomorrow. But the other part of it is now you have to make a decision on, is the right time to move him now because if this package was offered from whatever team it might be, or is it better to continue to go on and then look to make that move before the draft, which is more valuable, which helps the organization more and obviously preserves it long-term more. And those are tough decisions, and why luckily I don't have to make those decisions. I just get to talk about them after they happen or don't happen. But it will not be an easy 24 hours when it comes to that decision, I think, from ownership down to the organization. But where I always go back to the fans as well, when anytime this organization has made a trade or whenever they've signed a player, they've looked at everything from the numbers to the person and talking to all these situations, and things always come out on the right side. So I kind of sit comfortably right now, and I'm not too worried about it, whatever the decision might be.
Shane Willis is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. As a player, especially as you get, it's tomorrow. Like tomorrow at 3:00, we're done. As a player, how difficult is this time? Even if you're not a player, like Sebastian Aho probably isn't sitting here thinking, I might get traded tomorrow. But there are people in that locker room who may, including a good friend of his who might. How hard is it as a player at this time of the year?
It's a weird couple days because, as you mentioned, even if you're a guy that's not going anywhere, you're on edge because you're wondering, is there a move about to happen, one? And then is the move coming in going to be a swing to benefit us to make the final piece so we make this run? Or is it a piece going out the other way that you don't want to lose? So every player is going to have it on their mind, whether they think they're on the trade block or they're a substantial cornerstone piece of an organization, because you want to see what happened. They're not calling every player saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? There's no questions asked in that room, and their job is to mentally prepare, mentally focus on tonight's game. And it weighs a lot on the coaches. It weighs a lot on the players. But you have a job at hand tonight, and that's the Boston Bruins to be ready for, to continue to get wins in the win column and solidify your place in the Metro Division.
You've scored a few power play goals in your time. If you had to analyze what has been the one problem, if there's just one problem for the Hurricanes on the power play, because if you break down the first 31 games and the last 31 games, that's basically the difference. Power play was at better than 27% for the first 31. It's at 9% over the last 31. So what do you think the biggest difference has been?
To me, it goes a little bit back to, I think, puck movement. And we've heard Rod talk about that before, of saying, he uses the basketball analogy a lot where the ball is always moving, right? It gets the guys, all of a sudden someone's open and they shoot it. And I think the puck movement's been slow and stagnant at times, almost predictable, I think, for the penalty killing units to be like, well, they're going over here now, we'll just go block this. And then when it has been better, when they do get the shots, which I think the shot count has come up over the last couple of games, now you're losing that net front presence, not taking away goaltender's eyes, kind of making it easy for him to make those saves. And for a good power play, you have to have every one of those pieces going. I think a lot of times we overlook the fact that, oh, you have an extra guy. It should be a lot easier now. And it's actually harder because of how hard the penalty killing units work and they pressure. So everything has to be quick. Everything has to be moving, and you have to take those quality shots with guys around the net. Goaltenders see it, they're going to save it. And I think it's just been stagnant and slow over these past few weeks, and it's really cost them some great opportunities to put strangleholds on games in my mind. I don't think over this past stretch where the Hurricanes have been winning, the power play hasn't hurt them. But it hasn't helped them just have a solid grasp on some games. It's allowed teams to hang around them when they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back, well, it hurt them against Edmonton in the game that they lost, right? That first power play, look, it hasn't been great. That first power play that they had when Edmonton scored the shorthanded goal might have been the worst power play I've ever seen. They couldn't get the puck in, and then ultimately they lost it. Burns was not where he was supposed to be. It was a train wreck from the beginning. But they go 0 for 6 against Calgary, but I thought, other than the last double minor where they really didn't do much with it, I thought they generated some chances. So it wasn't soul sucking, which at this point is, kind of almost a step up because it's been bad. But you talk about puck movement and player movement, because I think it's more about forwards than it is about the guy at the top of the umbrella, if you will. I've always thought it's more about forwards. What can Aho or Jarvis or these guys do better to kind of get this thing going?
Well, I think you have to have different looks, and most of the time when the power play, if the puck's not moving, again, when you're seeing that, and the other part, Adam, I think we have to factor in when a power play is not going your way, where does your confidence go? It goes right in the tank.
Yeah.
And when you're not getting the zone entry, and I think the Hurricanes have done better of getting the zone entry over these past few games to get set up and move it around, it's almost like you're second guessing of like, okay, what should I do now? And the point you made about the Edmonton game, I can tell you as a player, nothing worse than your first shift coming over the boards on the power play. You're not really into it yet. You're
right.
You haven't even run into anybody, and you're trying to, move the puck around quick and go tic-tac-toe. So I love the fact that if these guys are moving around, exchanging positions, I think they have to be on a movement. It should almost look a little bit chaotic to me of guys moving all over the place, up and down, quickly moving the puck, and then shooting the puck. Shane Gostisbehere talked about it tonight. Not only when we're shooting the puck, but we're on our game when we're on our toes and we're jumping and we have the puck retrieval. When the Hurricanes have had shots over these past few games, I think where the power play struggled, they haven't got the puck back, and the team just sends it down the ice.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than draining than going, you get one shot, they send it back down. You get another shot, they send it back down. Now you're changing your units up. You want to have that sustained time, and puck retrieval is key, but they have to be on their toes. They have to be snapping it around. And I do like to always put in the fact, Adam, that I think this is the type of power play when you have this type of skill, that it only takes one or two in a game where the ball really starts rolling the other direction. The confidence goes through the roof, and you start breaking down the penalty killing units of the other team.
Yeah, man. Look, if people are believers in law of averages, the Hurricanes are probably owed a few over the last several weeks. Real quick before I let you go, has the goaltending looked better to you of late?
It's one of my points on the show tonight, Adam. On FanDuel Sports, I'm going to talk about the goalies because I agree with you. And when things are going right, you're not going to stop a team every single night from getting some grade A chances. But I'm going to look only at this last handful, right, against the Calgary team and against Detroit last game. When there was the breakdown and those teams got chances, Pyotr Kochetkov and Freddie Anderson were excellent.
Yep.
I thought Freddie Anderson was rock solid in Detroit. I thought Pyotr was phenomenal against Calgary. A very small sample size for Pyotr early in that game. But I go back to things we hear Rod talk about when he talks about quality chances. When teams have had those quality chances over these past few games, and if you go back even a little bit further, past Calgary, the Edmonton game was tough, but against Buffalo, those are the saves you have to have. And Rod knows that. These two know that. I think they're both playing very, very well right now. Pyotr Kochetkov will go tonight, and his record at home way better than on the road. So Pyotr has comfort here inside this building, and I think he'll be out there backstopping this team to another big victory against the Boston Bruins, who are banged up, injured, continue to surge, To me, the question for Boston is, do we hang around, or is this the turning point to going the other direction for the Boston Bruins? It's always going to be tough. And what I like to stress, too, as you know, Adam, these games are not going to be blowouts. When you look the rest of the season, every game is going to be a nail-biter. It's going to be tight. But Rod loved the game in Detroit, not because, hey, we won 2-1, but because his team did it the right way. The forwards were over top. The defense were standing up, and he got great saves at the end. And that's what he looks for every single night. I really like the fact that against Calgary and against Detroit, it was full 60-minute complete games from this team, and you'll need it again tonight to beat the Bruins. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I think I said the same thing. You would have loved, because there were more goals for Carolina in both games, if things are kind of evening out. But they won 2 games, 2-1, and you're going to have to win those games at some point anyway. You're going to have to win games when your offense doesn't support you, and that's when you get to your defensive structure and you get to your goaltending, and we get to Shane Willis. I'll see you at the rink a little bit later on, man. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Adam.
You got it. Shane Willis, by the way, not on Twitter. Okay? There is a Shane Willis, I wouldn't call it a parody account, because I don't think it really isn't trying to be funny. It is impersonating, is like, I am Shane Willis. It is not Shane Willis. And there are people, I don't know why people snapped at me about this, but I'm like, this is not a real account, people, so don't follow it. Don't treat it like it's Shane, because it is not Shane. And I was stunned at how many people came back to me. Maybe it's just other burners. Like, how do you know? I'm like, because I know.
Well, we asked him, and he says he doesn't have one.
I made sure. I'm like, are you on Twitter now?
Right.
Because the last I asked him about it, the answer was no. And it was like a month ago. So anyway, Shane Willis, not on Twitter.
Right. He
has no time for that. He's a serious individual. All right, we'll come back. We got one-timers. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/Adam Gold Show or /999 The Fan, and you can participate by putting a question in the little chat box right after you like and subscribe to the podcast and to this show on YouTube, youtube.com/Adam Gold Show. We'll come back with one-timers next. It's the Adam Gold Show. I am Adam Gold. Victoria on the ones and twos. We have a trade to report in the National Hockey League. No, it is not. Does not involve the Carolina Hurricanes. It does involve a former Carolina Hurricanes prospect, Brian Dumoulin, defenseman, who was part of the trade that brought Jordan Staal to the Hurricanes, has been traded from Anaheim to the New Jersey Devils. Whatever they got, nothing all that noticeable. But the Devils are a place where I believe all former Hurricanes end up, right? Pesci,
Seems that way.
Dougie Hamilton, who's hurt,
Yeah.
the reason for this trade. Who is it? Eric Holla, Steph Nason. Is there anybody else? I think just that four, just
Right.
those four. But now Brian Dumoulin is there. The Devils, who are going to be missing Hamilton for probably, 2, 3, 4 weeks with an injury. And Jack Hughes was declared out for the season. He had shoulder surgery after crashing into the boards the other day. So the Devils are definitely not the same Devils team that we saw earlier in the season that we thought we would see. I said this from the beginning of the season. I thought they had the best roster in the Metropolitan Division. And they never really gelled right away. Brett Pesci was hurt to start the season. But, man, it just hasn't come together. Injuries have certainly played a role. But I think if Carolina plays reasonably well, Canes are going to stay in front of New Jersey at the very least and remain in second place. All right, it's time for one-timers.
Okay, so I see everyone on the YouTube stream. We will get to as many as we possibly can.
There
So
we go.
starting things off, this was from yesterday because I do take note. I don't want to leave anybody out. But yesterday, William had this question, and he also still has it for today. So does it make sense to move Orlov to a forward so he can play less defense?
No, he's not. He's not a forward. I wouldn't move him. That'd be like saying, you know what? Kochetkov handles the puck well. We should play him at left wing. No, we're not doing that.
Even if he wants to play left
Not to
wing.
mention that Orlov isn't fast enough. So, no, it doesn't make sense. Sorry,
Orlov.
William.
Yeah. Well, moving on. Tom, he has a question. So, isn't the best scenario that the Canes keep Mikko, win the cup, and he decides he really likes it here? Question mark.
Why did we even have to have anything after win the cup?
Yeah.
That would be my question. If the Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup, if Mikko Rantanen wanted to go home to Finland to play, that would be okay. If you win the cup, there's no downside.
No,
to anything.
No. That's
anything.
the goal.
Exactly. We could have just ended the conversation right there. Best case scenario, yes, win the cup.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Anything else doesn't matter.
Exactly. Okay, this one from Clay. Who do you think, if anyone, could knock the Canes out in the playoffs?
Anybody.
Unfortunately.
Seriously, I mean, first of all, the National Hockey League, I don't know why we have these assumptions that you're always going to win. Florida could lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yep.
If they could win the Atlantic Division and lose in the first round of the playoffs, I would point this out. The Boston Bruins set an NHL record 2 years ago. A record for regular season points lost in the first round of the playoffs to Florida. But, yeah, you could lose to anybody at any point. Anybody could beat Carolina. Carolina could beat anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Panthers got knocked out the year before they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, they were also the Presidents.
Yes.
They didn't lose in the first round. They lost in the year before they won the Stanley Cup, they got to the finals. The year before that, they were the President's Trophy winners.
They were cursed.
They beat Washington, I believe, in the first round, but it wasn't easy, and I'm trying to remember what happened in the second round. Either way, it's not easy. Everybody's good.
They are very good. So this one from Dylan, he wants to know, do you think there's another building move the Carolina Hurricanes might make prior to the deadline?
No, I don't think there's anything significant that they will do. I mean, I know what I think they need. I think they need another defenseman. I think they need another center. I would love to see goalie help, but I don't think they're going to do any of that. Nothing significant. The significant moves have been made. Now they have to figure, can this team win? That's it.
All right, we might have time for two more. So this one, sticking with the Canes theme, where did this one go?
This is basically always about the Canes.
Well, I do have one about the Mudcats. Do you want me to throw that one out first?
Sure.
Okay, we'll
I don't know what I
one.
could do with this.
So Jacob, he said, and I love this because I've seen the Mudcats. They were out in Selma. He said, what do you think about the Mudcats moving to Wilson? He's a Wilsian, as he calls it, and he's excited for minor league baseball in his city.
I would be too. Look, the Mudcats. First of all, Milwaukee is a very good organization as a parent club, so that's always good. Which means you're going to have, especially where they are, you're going to have some prospects there. That's what you want to see. You'd love to be able to see some minor league big league prospects come through. They're not going to stay very long, but you'd like to be able to say, "I saw them when." Yeah, and I think it's a well-run team. So yeah, that's awesome. Good for the folks down in Wilson. I feel bad for the people at 5 County. It was a great ballpark.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, going back to the Carolina Hurricanes from WM, how do you think Tulsky will handle the Rantanen deal compared to Waddell's handling Gensel? Have we learned from our mistakes?
Don Waddell should not be blamed for anything, ever. The situations are somewhat similar in that they're high-profile players who are going to command big salaries. Tom Dundon, the owner, I think they blew that last year. So I guess Tulsky's part of it, but they have a lot more money to spend this year, so it won't be the same result. I mean, if he leaves, but it won't be because of money. It's the Adam Gold Show. I am Adam Gold. Victoria on the ones and twos. Mike Maniscalco. I will see him tonight. I still have not asked him for that hug.
Telling you. You should. And then you got to let me know how it was.
Well, you apparently know how it is.
I know.
You've been extolling the virtues. So, just saying. All right, so Hurricanes hockey tonight against the Boston Bruins. One of those days where right before the trade deadline, kind of hard to concentrate and all of it. Mikko Rantanen did skate this morning. He took part in an optional workout yesterday. So my guess is it is an unlikely scenario that would have Rantanen traded. But I think the Hurricanes are doing, as we say, their due diligence. But I don't believe they will move him unless somebody blows them away. And in that case, I could see it. I think everything is on the table, including staying and a deep playoff run. All of it. The ranges are enormous. Many, many things could happen. So hopefully the Hurricanes will win a hockey game tonight for their third consecutive game. They won 2 in a row now. First time since January they've done that.
Let's make it a streak.
Yeah, granted they have not played a lot of games in February, so
True.
They were 2-7, 2-6 in the month of February. They didn't play a lot. They missed 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We missed 2. It's a short month, and we missed half of it.
I was going to say, thankfully, it's a
So
short month.
There weren't a lot of games to be won or lost in the month of February. All right, let's run it back, and keep in mind Tyler Zeller is going to join us in about 15 or so minutes, and we will talk UNC versus Duke. So we all know about the bracketologist out there, all of that. Jerry Palm will join us tomorrow. He does not have Carolina in his field. Joe Lunardi, for a hot minute, I haven't looked at it today, but Joe Lunardi, as of yesterday, I guess he tweeted out, without doing a full bracket again, updated his last 4 in, and North Carolina was in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Whatever. My friend Mike DeCourcy, who's also going to join us tomorrow, he does brackets for FoxSports.com. He does not have North Carolina in. Bottom line is this. Nothing that they've done over this last 3 weeks has really changed their position because they haven't beaten a team in the field. And this is not to say that they are not good enough. It is not about, this team is good, this team isn't good. It's, has this team done enough to put themselves in the field? This ain't football. We don't have, limited data points. We got a lot of data points at this point. Now, there are certain elements I think that we should say would be in UNC's favor. And I actually don't believe, they're playing their best basketball right now, because that ain't a component of anything. It used to be, but it no longer is. It is, here's your resume, basically what you have done, and is that good enough to get you in? So I think one of the things, and I have asked many questions about this, I will ask this of both Mike and Jerry tomorrow. The Tar Heels have 8 losses to teams. Forget about Quad 1. They're 1-10 in Quad 1 games, right? But they have 8 losses to teams that are in the top 25 of the net rating. 8 losses. And I can run them down in order. 1, Duke is 1 in the net. Auburn is 2. Florida is 4. Alabama 6. Michigan State 11. Kansas is 21. Clemson is 22. Louisville is 25. Those are 8 losses. I'd like to say they don't hurt you because of the quality of those teams, but you haven't beaten any of them. And it's not like they're all in the top 10. And you did get punked by a lot of them. So it's good and bad. The fact that they have played such a difficult schedule is good. It's in their favor. the fact that they have won none of those games works against them. Their best win, UCLA, is 26th in the net. Their second best win, SMU at home, 46th in the net. Their third best win, Pitt at home, 61st. So before we start complaining that UNC deserves a bid over whatever team, keep in mind that if you are in this predicament, and UNC is, it's largely of your own doing. And right now, the Tar Heels have exactly one win against the field. On top of that, losses to Stanford at home, Pitt and Wake on the road, who are not going to be part of the NCAA tournament. Those are bad. Those are bad. And, I mean, different levels of bad. Wake Forest on the road is less bad than Stanford at home, right? And certainly Pitt was a different team then. Pitt has fallen apart completely. But there really isn't an argument to be made in favor of North Carolina at this point. And with all of that said, I don't think they're eliminated. I don't believe they're going to win tomorrow. Keep saying tomorrow, Saturday. I don't believe they're going to win Saturday. But you go to the ACC tournament and win all of your games that do not involve Duke. Win all of those. Or win at least two of those. And I think you've given yourself a chance. And that's all you can ask based on what you have accomplished or not accomplished this year. One more basketball thing, because it was brought up earlier, and I have seen it a ton, and I did hear Clinton Yates talk about it today on ESPN Radio. Could Cooper Flagg come back? First of all, I don't think he will. I want people to understand that when you are going to be the first players selected in the draft, it's really kind of foolish and risky and to a point reckless to return to school. Has it happened before? You could argue that Tim Duncan might have done that. And Duncan did it in an era where there was no name, image, and likeness. He just didn't feel like going. But here is where today's landscape makes it, however unlikely, but possible. It is quite possible that Cooper Flagg could earn more money at Duke than he could as the first pick in the NBA draft. Now, that would take a pretty big leap because the Duke is not going to pay him a $5 million a year salary or whatever the first pick of the draft gets. I think it's roughly $5 million a year. And then, gets all his NIL money, for all the companies that he's going to endorse. But if he truly wants to stay, even though you do take probably an initial financial loss, the real issue is that you delay the next contract by a year. But he certainly wouldn't go poor if he came back to Duke for one more year. I don't think he's going to do that. But it is interesting that people have convinced themselves that it's possible. But again, there's a lot of money to be made at Duke. It all depends on if he wants to do that. But I doubt it highly because it does come with a lot of risk. So you would never want to do. I don't think you would ever want to do that. But again, I am not making that decision. So NC State won a basketball game, but lost when Notre Dame came back and beat Stanford. That was a weird game at the end. Those two teams took turns going on big runs. Notre Dame went on a big run, I think 13-0 run to take the lead, and then Stanford responded with like a 7-0 run to retake the lead, and then Notre Dame hit the shot with like 17 seconds left or whatever it is to give them the lead, and Stanford could not score again. But so as a result of Notre Dame winning, they cannot be caught by State. Notre Dame's the only team NC State had the tiebreaker with. So they needed Notre Dame to lose both games. State needed to win both games. Wolfpack did their part with a win over Pitt, but Notre Dame did not cooperate by beating Stanford. So, for the first time since they helped invent the damn thing,
Yikes.
NC State will miss the ACC tournament.
Not great.
I don't know what this means. I really don't know what it means for the future of Kevin Keats. I know there are fans that want him fired, whatever. I don't think he's going to get fired. I mean, maybe he could. I mean, you missed the ACC tournament, and I will say that I don't think he has done an amazing job this year. Look, we're not in practice, and I'm sure that had Paul McNeil, Trey Parker, had heard, and any of the freshmen, if they had practiced so well that you had to start them, they probably would have been at least more in the rotation, if not starting earlier in the season. But at some point, thinking about next year has to take hold. And I think they waited too long to do anything. I don't get why McNeil and Trey Parker combined for 10 minutes last night. I just don't. But Breon Pass played well, and you leaned on seniors, all of that. But, man, should have done one way or the other this year. And I just think that this was a very difficult year in a lot of ways. But the fact that in this ACC that they're going to miss out on the ACC tournament, it's almost hard to recover from that as a head coach because of where you are. And you could set aside the fact that they were in the Final Four last year because we know that was kind of a goof, a fluke, a miracle. But at the end of the day, Rod Brind'Amour likes to talk about memories. You're making memories. NC State made an incredible memory last year, and that, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, fans are going to have to live off that for a minute. It's okay.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. By the way, Jay Lucas is the new coach at the University of Miami. He will join that program after Duke's game in Chapel Hill Saturday. So my guess is he flies down probably, if not late Saturday night, flies down Sunday morning, and they have an introductory press conference on Monday to announce, because they're not going to the ACC tournament either. But Jay Lucas will become the head coach at Miami officially on Monday. Everything's been agreed, contract signed. They had the release yesterday. And I can say this, he was a significant part of this current Duke team and the program. John Shire did not shy away from hiring a coach that didn't have Duke ties. Jay Lucas does have Durham ties. Though he's from Durham, his dad was a legend here, and ultimately John Lucas played at Maryland. But it is just a weird situation to leave a team like Duke, which is possibly going to win stuff between now and the end of the year.
Good possibility.
Right. We're not going to put any cart before horse, but if they win in Chapel Hill, they will be the outright ACC regular season champions, if that's even a thing. They have a chance, certainly going to be in the mix, in with a shout, as they say, to win the ACC tournament next week. And maybe, who knows, maybe they go far in the NCAA tournament. So they will be in for trophies. And Jay Lucas will not be there to help, scout, coach, all of that. It's weird. Very, very odd, the predicament that Duke is in with that. I can say unequivocally there are no hard feelings. Everybody is cool. But the admission that, yeah, this is a loss based on what he has done here. I don't think it'll prevent them from winning, but it doesn't make it easier, that's for sure. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Tyler Zeller on the other side. Obviously, the Tar Heels have won 6 in a row. The three-point shot seems to have come back across the board. Is their defense up to the Duke experience? We'll talk to Tyler Zeller about that next. the Adam Gold Show. I am Adam Gold. Victoria producing the program. North Carolina has won 6 in a row. Absolutely, just throttled Virginia Tech on the road on Tuesday. And the regular season finale comes Saturday night at the Dean Smith Center against the Duke Blue Devils. We always know where the season is going to end. It's either in Durham or it's in Chapel Hill, and these two programs will go head-to-head. Tyler Zeller is part of the North Carolina radio broadcast, and he joins us on the Adam Gold Show. You didn't get the last game, the one in at Cameron Indoor Stadium, so you didn't have to climb up in the crow's nest and get all cramped. Are you getting this one?
I am getting this one. So we Tyler Hansbrough and I, we made the agreement he could get the one at Cameron because he'd never been there. I got it last year, but I have this one this weekend, which hopefully it's a better one than at Duke. Duke, they killed us over there, so hopefully we can have a better showing tomorrow or Saturday.
Yeah. By the way, I've been calling it tomorrow also.
It seems like it is.
Gosh.
Everything starts tomorrow. Just the game doesn't actually happen until Saturday.
When you played, how far in advance do you start feeling the game? How far in advance do you do that?
It depended on the season. So my junior year, we were different but similar to this team where you're building towards something. We were building towards the ACC championship, and then that game came down to whoever won the ACC regular season title. So you feel that momentum building as you're progressing towards that. But then senior year, we got beat on the last second shot at home. And so we hung on to that one basically since we lost that game all the way through to the final. So it builds for a long time. And I'm sure these guys are holding on to, losing by 18 and being down by much more at their place. They're holding on to it, and they'll be ready to go.
Tyler Zeller is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Back to that game, because, look, you and I have different, responsibilities. I looked at that game, and I know that there was a time, I think it was like a 16-0 run late in the second half that made the score look better. But I basically said, I don't put anything into that because of what the score was and the fact that the game was over. How do you use even that, given the time that it happened, how do you use that as a positive that, all right, we did this, we can impact the game this way, and then you also look at the way the team has played the last 6 games?
Yeah, I think you look at the end of that game and you see they started attacking the switches better. That when we played them, Pitt did a really good job switching us and we struggled with it. Duke did that. Clemson did it. And then in this last 6 games here, we've done a much better job. Part of that is the reemergence of Lubin inside. He's done a really good job switching on the switches, rolling to the rim and either sealing off the guard or sealing him to the point where you can throw it over the top and you can shoot a layup. So Duke, obviously, probably the best switching team in the league. They have the best defense in the league, too. So they're going to switch. Mowalic will come out and guard. They're going to try to, what we call switching off the ball, put Cooper Flag onto Lubin and try to stay big. We're going to try to raise a shooter so they can't do it. So it'll be a little bit of a chess match, but I think there's a lot to build on in the last 6 games, scoring averaging over 90 points a game in those 6 games and shooting well from 3 and just they look more cohesive and much better, but against weaker competition, and very, very much know that. But, it'll be interesting how we play against Duke, who's obviously an elite team who has a chance to win a championship this year.
Tyler Zeller is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Jalen Withers has really played well over the last month. How does he change? And he started to, by the way, he looked pretty good in the game at Duke. I thought that was, if not the first game, maybe the second game where he started to kind of regain his footing in the season because he was out of the rotation for a while. How does he change the calculus for the Tar Heels in this particular game? Maybe more so on the defensive end than the offensive end.
I think he changes a lot. The first game we had Trimble and Powell guarding Cooper Flag. In this game, hopefully Withers is ready to go, plays well. He gives a little more size. He's actually a pretty solid post defender as well as perimeter defender, but it allows Powell to be able to move out onto one of those guards. It allows Trimble to guard one of those guards. So hopefully defensively we can have a better shell, better matchups, put more pressure on the ball. Powell, I think, as Withers has played well, Powell's been able to slide to the 3, and he's a phenomenal perimeter defender. And so he's able to pressure those guys all the way out to half court, really make it hard to initiate the offense. And Withers is able to guard in the post a lot better. You saw it a lot like Syracuse when they're trying to back him down. We didn't have to double. And then the other thing he does really well, which won't be as big of a deal against Mawalik, but it will be against Flag, of doubling the post. He comes quick and aggressive, and he's tall, and he's long, and it just makes a huge difference when he's coming across rather than one of our smaller guards.
So guarding Cooper Flag, what is the one thing? Did you just go ooh?
Yeah.
Well, my second question will have to deal with ooh. But what is the one thing you want to take away?
I think you just got to take away easy opportunities. He's going to make shots. He's going to come off a pick and roll. He's going to come off and he's going to shoot a ball over you that he just makes. Ian Jackson can do the same thing, not quite at the same level as Flag, but I think you just got to make it difficult on him. You got to make him work all night so that he's not, if you can keep the game close late game, he's tired and worn down because he's had to work so hard. And so trying to rotate people off on him. And then I think with Duke, you got to take away the second chance opportunities. Mm-hmm. They're too good of an offensive team to give them second chances also. And if you can get that, we can get out in transition and go the other way. Whereas the first game, I felt like they had a lot of second chance opportunities to just kind of, great defense for 35 or 25 seconds, and then you give a second chance, easy layup, and that's where they go on their runs.
Tyler Zeller is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Now to the part, because I said this probably 2 months ago, because I think when you talk about a guy like Flag, who's likely going to win all of the national awards, certainly all the conference awards, at Duke, the immediate comparison is to a guy like Zion, who was such an infatuation. It's not the same. It's not the same. Like you couldn't take your eyes off Zion Williamson even when he was blowing out a shoe. But I'm not sure that Flag. It's not that I'm not sure. I think Cooper Flag is a better basketball player than Zion Williamson. As somebody who played, when you watch Cooper Flag, what are you seeing? What are you impressed by?
I think the biggest thing is he just affects the game in so many ways. He plays hard. I mean, he dives on the floor when they're up 20 points, and he cares about winning, and you can see that. And, Zion is a physical specimen. I mean, he's going to jump, and his head's going to be at the rim, and he's going to make it look really good. But defensively, sometimes the effort's not there. And so I think Flag, his ability to pass, his ability to, if you post up and you double him, he can pass out really, really well. He can get to the rim, and one of the things that makes Duke so dangerous is they have shooters as well as a really good big. And so you can't just take away the three-point line or just take away the paint. You got to try to do everything. And then you have Flag over here who can do everything beyond that. And so it's just a really well put together team. And I think Flag is the kind of the instrument that makes it all go. He's able to create for everybody as well as create for himself so well.
Does this Duke team remind you at all of the team? You were a freshman on the 09 team. Does it remind you at all of that?
A little bit. We had, Hansbrough inside who had a lot of experience. I think one of the things I'll be interested to see is when they get to the tournament, they're a young team. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes with those young teams, the tournament is a little different. It's a little more physical, a little faster. And so I think they have all the talent in the world. I think they have as much talent as that 09 team. I think the experience was much bigger on the 09 team. We had a lot of juniors and seniors who really had been there. They'd lost to Kansas. They kind of had a chip on their shoulder. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to watch this Duke team when they get to the tournament and just how kind of invigorated and ready to go they are throughout, because it's hard to win 6 in a row.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Lawson, Ellington, Green, those guys have been around for a bunch of years at that point. Hansbrough was a senior. Yeah, it was. It's one of the best teams I ever sat and watched in person. Yeah. And you guys, completely annihilated everybody. Won every NCAA tournament game by at least double digits. Right?
It was. Oklahoma gave us a little run for a little bit.
Right.
And then,
for a hot minute. I was there.
It was a fun game. I'm still not sure why Coach Williams put me in to guard Blake Griffin, but somehow I survived for 4 minutes. But that it was a fun team and so talented. I mean, Ty Lawson, somebody people forget how good of a college player he was.
Mm-hmm.
He had 8 steals in the championship game in the first half, and just he could do anything and make anything happen. And so it's hard to compare to that team just because they were so good. But this team, Duke team, if they can go in the tournament and be as dominant as they've been in the ACC, they have a chance to try to put their name in that category.
Tyler Zeller is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. All right, final thing, and this goes back to the Tar Heels. Obviously, of the last 6 games, it has looked dramatically different. I know Hubert Davis said he thinks everybody's having more fun. He said he is certainly having more fun. I am all about whatever helps Hubert Davis have more fun. I have tons of respect for him. What have you noticed among the most important things, whether it's RJ or Elliot Cadeau? What have you noticed that has enabled this team to kind of get back to being who they are?
I think everybody's just kind of accepted their role. Cadeau's done a really good job playing point, but we've also moved RJ Davis back to point for a fairly large portion of the game. And so he's done a really good job at point. He takes care of the ball at a high level. Not quite the passer Cadeau is, but Cadeau also can turn over the ball a lot. And so it's been a good combination for those two. And then Withers at the 4 has been really good. And Lubin, I don't really know what clicked with him 5 or 6, 7 games ago, but all of a sudden it's clicking with him like, all right, I need to be dominant in the paint. When they switch, I can post up small and just turn and shoot. Shooting over 75% from the field, which is just phenomenal. And so he creates a different dynamic for us. And then one of the other things I've really noticed is in our pick and roll coverages, he's doing a better job of not letting the big get behind him and give up easy layups, which makes our whole defense better. And we're rebounding better. Just the whole team just looks like they bought into their role, and nobody's trying to score 20 points. You got 5, 6 people that are scoring double digits in most of these games, and it makes it a lot of fun because you don't know who's going to score. And once we're dominant inside, we can kick out, and we have some really good 3-point shooters, and they're shooting really good shots.
So, and I guess I lied because I have one other follow-up here.
All good.
But there's so much talk about making the NCAA tournament, and I don't know how much of it you can shield the guys from. They're on social media, they see it all, they watch TV. Yeah. So, how do you block all of that out and get back to the business of doing what you're supposed to do?
Going into the Duke game, you just want to beat Duke. It's that kind of rivalry where it doesn't matter who's good, who's bad. You just want to beat them. Now, on top of that, beating Duke would help us tremendously getting in the ACC or getting in the NCAA tournament. If we do lose to them, I think we got to go in the ACC tournament and win a couple games against, Duke, Clemson, Louisville. You got to beat one of those teams to kind of put your name in. And so, but we've had a good run. Our name's back in. Before these 6 games, we were kind of on the outside looking in, and we're right on the cusp of putting our name in there. So I think we just got to come out and have a really good showing against Duke so we can compete at that level. Hopefully get a win. If we don't, we got to go in the ACC tournament and get a couple wins.
Tyler Zeller, I appreciate your time, my friend. At Zeller Tyler. I just realized it's backwards. It's backwards.
Somebody had Tyler Zeller when I got on.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I don't know who it was, but they had it. So somebody I had to go backwards.
Squatting on your Twitter name, man. Thank you very much for the time. Have fun on Saturday, and we will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Tyler Zeller here on the Adam Gold Show. Look.
I don't have to worry about that problem, by the way.
Right.
Twitter and nobody's got mine.
Maybe somebody has all those underscores.
They might. Yeah, one can hope.
Look, I would like nothing better than for this to be a great, classic Duke UNC game. That would be awesome. By the way, I like our graphic. We have graphics for this.
I know.
Very good.
Fancy graphics.
We don't do this for every game.
No.
Oh, by the way, our friend Dan Wolkin from USA Today is on a personal mission for ESPN to not throw all of their attention at this game. That'd be like saying Ohio State, Michigan isn't worth covering.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Granted, North Carolina in 2 out of the last 3 years hasn't necessarily been all that great. But it still doesn't mean that this rivalry isn't great. In some ways, it would be like saying, well, Army and Navy aren't good at football. No, this is always the number one game of the year, and if it weren't for a 1 versus 2, and this year might be a little bit different because North Carolina is, not the North Carolina, that we've grown accustomed to, but more often than not, you're talking about two teams that are in the top 25, and this game, again, also more often than not, helps to decide who's going to finish first. And Tyler brought up, when he played, who's going to finish first. And I think that matters. So, and just to get back to the Duke element of this game matters to Duke. I know the prevailing thought is that it somehow doesn't because of where they are. But I think this Duke team has completely transitioned from who are we playing to we have to play at this level to satisfy ourselves. And I've been using the phrase, they are playing to a standard, a level of performance that supersedes who the opponent is. That's where I think this Duke team is, and that's where they have to be. Mike DeCourcy is going to join us tomorrow. We were actually just chatting back and forth about this earlier today, and I brought this up before because I do believe that it could ultimately be maybe not the reason, but a factor as to why Duke does not ultimately win the title. I think there's probably a lot of teams that can win, a lot more than people think, but Duke is definitely one of the best choices. If somebody only gave you two choices, Duke should be one of them. Auburn the other, in my opinion. But how much will Duke be punished or penalized? I don't even know what the right word is. By having this season in the ACC be so They played Louisville once on the road, won it. They played Clemson once on the road, lost it, had a chance late, but didn't win. Essentially, those are the only two serious challengers to Duke. That's it. And I've brought up Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference a lot. And I have been of the opinion over the last 2 decades that Gonzaga has been great in that it ultimately works against them when you get into the NCAA tournament because you have spent such a long time playing games that can't challenge you and push you to get better. Now, if you look at Gonzaga's performance over that stretch, Gonzaga did a pretty good job of performing at a high level in the tournament without winning one. They got to a couple of Final Fours, two, maybe 3 Final Fours. They got to a national championship game. They got completely destroyed by Baylor in that national championship game. But it's hard to argue overall with the amount of success that they've had unless you disrespect the tournament by thinking, you should win all the time. It ain't easy. Tyler Zeller talked about it. It's just not easy to win 6 in a row. It's because you're always going to come up against some obstacle, some team having a career game, you having a bad game, circumstance, foul trouble, bad officiating, whatever. So the fact that the ACC isn't great night in and night out, is that going to work against Duke? And my opinion is that they have not treated any game like it was an easy mark. That is not easy to do because there are plenty of games that are easy marks. This year in the ACC, it's about half the games. And they simply have not done that at all. And they have gotten better at saying, this is what we're going to do. Whoever you are, deal with it. And we are just accelerator down and playing. And now they're playing faster, which is one thing that the ACC did not want to see. was Duke playing to a higher possession game. More possessions will always favor the better team. With all of that said, that's where I think this Duke team is taking it to another level, and I think they are greedy, and I think they want to win everything, which means Saturday matters. Next Saturday matters to them. That would be the ACC championship game, and the next 6 games after that. I think they are here to win 10 in a row starting Saturday. That's what I believe they're here for. They're not thinking about it in those terms, but I think they are taking every game as a chance to show the world how good they are. I think they win. I think they win Saturday. I've said this before. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We will stretch. We will also place bets. Do we have an update on anything? No, we don't. But we'll talk. We'll place bets, and maybe that will come up. Canes and the Bruins tonight. Next.
trade this life for fortune and fame. I'd even cut my hair and change my name. Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop bosses driving 15 cars. The girls come
It's the Adam Gold Show. Victoria, spinning tracks. What do we have here?
This is Nickelback, and there's a reason I'm playing Nickelback.
All right, let's hear it. I saw you smiling as we came back from the break, so
I know, because
there's a story behind this.
There's some people who feel like really some kind of way about Nickelback. Either love them or hate them. I think they got a lot of grief in their span in music, which they're not done, but that's part of my 7th inning stretch, though. That's why I was laughing.
Okay.
And I know some people are either jamming or like, oh, God.
I honestly have no opinion on Nickelback. Zero opinion of Nickelback.
Oh, no?
None.
Nice, yeah.
I mean, I don't have never listened to them, so I have no idea if they're good or bad. I see shade thrown.
Lots of shade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Jordan Martinook loves Nickelback.
Yeah.
So,
I know, right? Wasn't he, didn't he go on stage with them?
Yes. Yes.
That's fantastic.
And it's tremendous.
A Marty party every day
Yep,
with him.
I agree.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't mind Nickelback, but I will give people credit who say that a lot of their songs sound the same because it's kind of true. But it's not terrible.
But isn't that true for
It's for a lot.
I mean, if you have a distinct sound.
I mean, Dave Matthews Band. Sorry,
Right.
I'm one of those who's not like a big. I'm not a Dave Matthews Band.
But Dave Matthews Band songs generally sound similar.
Yep.
I'm a Steely Dan fan.
Yeah.
There's like one album of Steely Dan that doesn't sound like all the other albums.
Right.
Right. I mean, I love Steely Dan. And I can listen to all of them over and over and over and over again. But yeah, it sounds the same. It sounds
right.
Police. The Police. It sounds the same.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's easy to love.
Exactly.
Well, I will kick that off with our 7th inning stretch. So the reason that I played Nickelback was because Billy Corgan, who was the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, I say was because I don't think they've toured in a long time and have any intentions of touring anytime soon. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, and out of nowhere, this conversation was, they supposedly were just talking about polarizing music acts, and he said, we are about to see Nickelback and Creed make a huge run.
Really?
Out of nowhere. He's got no reasoning
Creed?
for this. Yes, he threw Creed out there. I don't know if that is, oh gosh, the team is now escaping me. Was it the Dodgers who played Higher? It was their warm-up song for baseball. Yes. Oh, somebody in the stream's going to tell me, but there was a baseball team that was like that was their song in the warm-ups, and they were like on a winning streak for a while. So I think that's really what got Creed back in the news. But yeah, Billy Corgan thinks that Nickelback and Creed are going to make a comeback. He said they survived the hate, and now comes the inevitable moment of, it was really good. They wrote a lot of good songs. That's what he thinks people are going to think. So he said that they were one of the most misunderstood bands in rock history, his band, the Smashing Pumpkins, and that time will tell his story. There's a lot with Billy Corgan. I watch a lot of music documentaries. There's a lot of history with them Smashing Pumpkins. So I would highly recommend people watch that if you're interested. But yeah, he thinks Nickelback and Creed are coming back in a big way.
Really?
So,
Okay.
We shall see about that. One thing that might not be coming back, though, in Walmart, I cannot say that I have bought these or that I am surprised that this is the case at Walmart, but apparently Walmart has been selling frozen chicken nuggets with no chicken in it. So it's like not even mystery meat. There just is no meat.
Is it a Walmart brand?
Yes. So a woman in Jacksonville posted a video, and I watched this like 15-second video.
Right.
And she cuts them in half. Now, it's Great Value, their brand. Yeah. She cuts these little nuggies in half, and it's big disappointment because there's nothing. It's literally breading.
It's empty. Yeah, well.
There's nothing in it, which maybe they're trying to do you a justice.
Well,
but yeah.
You know, we're having like chicken issues now, aren't we?
Right. I know. Well, I guess someone else also had this problem late January because there's another video of someone who also cut their chicken nuggets with nothing inside of it. So Walmart has released a statement this week saying they are, quote, working closely with their suppliers to resolve the issue. Yes, absolutely. You can bank that one for sure. So, yeah, maybe don't buy Walmart chicken nuggets. One thing that you can buy this summer, though, they are gearing up for summer season. Crystal Light is finally on board because, a lot of
Crystal
people...
Light, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Right? I know. Well, now they're getting on the bandwagon of making seltzers, or what they're calling refreshers. Now, Crystal Light's been used in mixed drinks for decades.
Right.
Generations. So they're finally realizing, hey, we should use our product that everyone else uses for this purpose. So they are making Crystal Light vodka refreshers. These will be 77 calories, 0 sugar beverages, and they will come in 2 flavors. Wild strawberry and lemonade. Delicious. The alcohol content, though, is going to be real low. It's only 3.8 ABV, so.
Okay.
So you're not going to get wasty-faced, from drinking these things, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, you can find those in the Northeast this month, and then after that, they'll roll it out into larger places. And a 4-pack will cost you about $10. So there you go.
Not bad.
Maybe you could get your $10 from our awesome bets.
Place your bets, place your bets. Here we are. I bet you slice into the woods $100.
Gambling is illegal in Bushwood, sir, and I never slide.
Okay, you can owe me. I owe you nothing.
You know what I forgot to remind everybody yesterday of? Remember my anytime goal scorer for the Hurricanes in Detroit? Jordan Martinook.
Yes. And he was the first one to do it, too.
Yeah, but I didn't do first goal scorer. I did anytime goal scorer.
Gosh, wonder what the numbers would have been for first one.
Actually, it was about 2,600, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Well, I didn't do too bad yesterday. I went 2 for 3. Caps under 5.5 came through. Canucks under 5.5 came through. So I'm sticking with.
There you go.
I'm sticking
Roll
with
'em.
Ice Bet. I know, I'm trying. So tonight, I feel like these, you never know with these, though. Buffalo Sabres, they're going to be in Tampa Bay taking on the Lightning. I've got to go with the Lightning, and I don't know, I'm going to go with the under because it said it's 6.5. That's plus 155.
All right. We have Hurricanes hockey tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Canes have been, offensively, it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
But they are huge favorites against the Bruins tonight. Plus, it's like minus 330 something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. No point. Canes minus a goal and a half and under 5.5. I could see 3-1 Hurricanes.
Yeah, I would like it.
All right.
I'll take it.
So we'll say 3-1 Hurricanes, Canes minus 1.5, under 5.5, plus 300.
Nice. Next up, Calgary Flames. They're going to be in Dallas taking on the Stars. Give me the Dallas Stars. They're on up there in their conference as well. And I'm going to go with the under 5.5 because it could get ugly for the Flames. So plus 130.
All right. By the way, Jordan Martinook plus 450. Anytime goal scorer. Thank me later. The Detroit Red Wings are going to beat the Utah Hockey Club tonight. Under 6.5 plus 255.
Oh, okay. And last but not least, like you mentioned, Bruins, they're here in our town. Give me the Canes to win. I'm also going to take under 5.5. Just that alone is plus 160.
All right. Plus, okay, so if you just do the money line, you don't have to worry about winning by 2.
Right.
I'd like to see a shutout of the Boston Bruins tonight.
That'd be great.
That would be fantastic. All right. One more. I could also see 4-2 Hurricanes, which means that you may take the over. Never mind. By the way, Jack Drury, anytime goal scorer against San Jose is plus 500. Jack, I don't know. Maybe. All right. We have Europa. We had Champions League yesterday. Europa today. Manchester United is at Real Sociedad. And I like Sociedad is at plus 250 at home. Although I see the game's already started. So I don't even know if you can get in on it. That might be a waste. Sorry. and started. It's the Adam Gold Show. I am Adam Gold. We have a special in the Wall of Sound. We will hear from the head coach of your Carolina Hurricanes, Rod Brind'Amour, coming up in just a couple of minutes. That was Dan Orlovsky. So we talked to Mike Felder a week ago. He didn't think that Travis Hunter was the best player in this draft. He thinks there's a better cornerback. He thinks there are better wide receivers in this draft, which is fair, right? I've spoken to people who do think that Travis Hunter is the best player in this draft. I think he's the best player in this draft, but I ain't an expert on it. I do think, though, that if we are being smart, Travis Hunter should be first and foremost a cornerback, and then you spot him at wide receiver. You use him for who knows how many plays, 15 plays, 20 plays at wide receiver. But he is an every snap cornerback if I am running the team. By the way, did you see the contract Saquon Barkley got?
Oh, yes.
Massive
right?
contract from the Eagles. Do I have the hiccups?
Not so
How old am I? A child? Suddenly I'm a
You have to
child.
hold your breath and bend over.
I need a, what?
Yeah, it's a trick. Maybe at the doctor's office, too.
All right, then. So I need a brown paper bag. That would help, too.
Yep.
So to me, it's a simple thing. If Hunter is an elite cornerback, whether he's the best cornerback or not, he plays there. And I keep saying this about the cornerback, the wide receiver position. And it actually speaks to the cornerback position. I think you can. I don't know how many elite corners there are in the NFL. Every team does not have one. There are more elite wide receivers than there are elite cornerbacks. There are more close to elite wide receivers than there are close to elite cornerbacks. So if you get a guy who is an elite cornerback, that's where he plays. And all of his work offensively would be, let's give him a few snaps here and there. Even if you use him a fair amount, he should be a cornerback first. I think the team that puts him at wide receiver first is making a mistake, but I'm not sure any team will do that. I think he is a cornerback when he gets drafted, and then, he becomes a two-way weapon, but I think he's got to be a corner. Has to be a corner. So, and, it's funny, we talked about, I remember a conversation we had with Rod Brind'Amour a long time ago about Shohei Ohtani, who is this obviously great hitter, and he didn't pitch last year because he had an elbow injury the previous year. He's going to pitch this year. So, and I asked him, is there anything like that in hockey? He goes, nope, because you'd have to, get a goalie start and then, be a 50-goal scorer. There is nothing like that in hockey. And in this day and age of the National Football League, there's nothing like it in the NFL. The last person who did both, really, was Deion Sanders, who coached Travis Hunter. It's worth pointing out. But Sanders was still a good and a dangerous weapon on the offensive side of the ball, but he was first and foremost a cornerback. It's just very easy when you think about it. All right, I promised the head coach of your Carolina Hurricanes in this Wall of Sound.
The Wall of Sound is a function of this studio. There's no doubt about it.
Excuse me. As you might have guessed, we recorded this earlier. Are you looking forward to the trade deadline passing more than anybody at this point?
I mean, not more than anybody. I'm sure there's other people that are a little more, ready for it to be done. But yeah, it'll be nice to be settled, and then, we can stop talking about it and just move on. Whatever ends up happening.
How do you think Mikko's handling?
It's got to be stressful. There's no doubt about it. It's with the way it's unfolded and everything. I mean, I'm sure it's not easy, but he also knows that it'll be over soon. So, I mean, I think that's, but that's basically, you got a day and we'll know one way or another how things are going to shake out.
I mean, I know that there are similarities to when you were traded from Philadelphia here to the situation he's in. I mean, he was completely blindsided but from the beginning. How do you feel? I mean, again, you don't really know him all that well at this point, but how do you feel like he has handled all of this?
Yeah, I think he's done a good job with it. I mean, I think his play has been fine. Like, I think his games have been good. He just, hasn't really produced a ton, but certainly can see he's created a lot of chances for our team. And, I think that area has been fine. I think the other stuff, I'm sure, has been hard just because, number one, the trade, and then we just have to deal with the fact that there's a contract issue and all that stuff. So I think that has just added to it.
What about the guys around him? How have they handled it?
Yeah, I think we don't talk about it. I mean, I talk about it with you and the media, but in here, it's just we got jobs to do. And,
yeah.
You put numbers in places and guys have things to do, and that's your responsibility. So I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
Look, certainly the team has played well over the last few games, and I want to get to that in a second. But are there elements of the game when you are looking for your team to play the way you want them to play? Are there elements of the game that you focus on particularly to say, all right, this is where we need to be here in this particular area for all of it to come together?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, that's, every night we're trying to stress that and play to the identity and what we know wins, what makes us our best. And, I think it's the nature of that is that it's not easy to play that way, and it's hard. And so you're always fighting I'd rather do it a little differently because it's a little easier, but we know that doesn't work. So it's just getting us to be dialed in on, the way we played the last little while. It's pretty obvious. I mean, it's pretty good looking hockey. We haven't scored a ton, but we certainly, that is the one area you can't really, there's nothing you can do about that. All you can do is, get to the water, and then you got to drink it, right? Like we're getting there. We just got to find a way to cash in on the opportunities. Because when I look at the end of the game and I see the way we grade chances and we're almost 2-1 teams,
yeah,
that is the answer.
Did you bring up the horse to water, but you can't make it drink because my wife has horses? Is that why you brought that up?
No, but I just, all your animal lovers out there, I didn't want to offend anybody.
Totally understand. I was looking at it's funny, 62 games played, first 31, last 31. It basically all comes down to the power play. I mean, maybe it shouldn't, and maybe it's also 5-on-5. I don't know. How do you fix? I know you've tried. What is it about the power play you think that is so different now than the first half of the year?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, we're not as good right now on the entries, that's for sure. And so that just means your zone time is limited. And when you limit the zone time, that's less chances to create stuff and run your sets and everything else. I think. Also, I mean, I don't think it does help much that I'm moving the lines around and all that, but you almost have to at some point. You want to get some continuity with the groups,
right?
But it's if it's not producing, you got to do something. So we've been shuffling around a little bit. I really we only had one power play the other night. We had two, but one was 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't. That's another thing. Lately, we haven't been getting a ton of power play opportunities, but I think but just getting back to, okay, this is your job. When you're out there, you do it, and not kind of trying to do everybody's job. Like, I think that's simplified a little more. But there is a chemistry issue we gotta definitely figure out here before too long.
All right, final thing. Last two games, I thought was really good stuff from your goaltenders. Piotr, I thought against Calgary was excellent. We talked about the fact that he might have won the game early in the second period. I thought Freddie was really good in your last one in Detroit. I know it's going to be Piotr tonight. Obviously this is what you want to see, these guys pushing each other. and making the big saves when you need them.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, we've talked about at length, right? It's can you make the saves you're supposed to? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the bad goals that always seem to, haunt you.
Yeah.
And we eliminate those. We're going to give up some chances, but we typically don't give up a ton. And so it's just, can you just make the save you're supposed to? Because that's probably all we need, to at least be in the game or be right around it. And that's what you saw the last couple of nights. I think there was a couple big breakdowns, there were a couple breakaways and 2-on-1s early in the game, and that could have been the game. I mean, if it was going, it's a different story. So he shut the door. We're allowed to get to our game, get ahead, and that's the recipe.
Good luck tonight. It's almost over, this whole deadline stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
This has to be a tough time for everybody. So, what would be really cathartic? Thumping the Boston Bruins. Last time the Hurricanes and Bruins played, it was all the way back in October. Halloween, actually. 8-2 in favor of Carolina. At that point, I thought Boston was horrible. I'm not sure they're really good, but I don't think they're horrible. But that time, oh man, did I think they were bad. All right, when we come back, Will Palasik, who's the voice of Charlotte FC, but also does pre and post for the Hornets, and we talk Panthers. We can talk a lot of things with Willie P. Style, who joins us next.
this before.
It's the Adam Gold Show. I'm Adam Gold. Victoria's here. We will talk with Will Palasik in just a minute. The voice of Charlotte FC. He works also with the Hornets and the Panthers. He is all things Charlotte. And by the way, if you are a fan of soccer, Charlotte FC has right now one of the best players in MLS. Wilfried Zaha, who spent time most recently with played in the Turkish league, which is a very good league in Europe, but for several years before that was at Crystal Palace playing in the Premier League, and is an absolutely dynamic, ball-carrying, offensive-producing winger forward. Tremendous player. He's going to be great in Major League Soccer, and he's with Charlotte FC. So it's going to be fun to follow them all year long. Their next match, by the way, is Sunday at Inter Miami. But I do want to talk about the Panthers and free agency as well as the Hornets because there's a lot going on. Free agency is about to start, and I know where I would like to see the Panthers focus their attention in free agency, and I think you have to do the same thing with the draft. And it's really both lines of scrimmage. For the life of me, I don't know why you would say, all right, we're done with the offensive line. I think you have to always add to the offensive line. Just to show you, I don't know what Kansas City's doing, trading Joe Thuney, but they traded him to Chicago. But Chicago is doing what the Panthers did a year ago, and that's rebuilding the interior of their offensive line. They added two guys who at one point were all pro at the guard spots. So good for the Bears, recognizing that, hey, we got a quarterback, we need to keep him alive, which is what the Panthers went through with Bryce Young. Got a quarterback, need to keep him upright, so let's make sure the offensive line is better. I think you always have to pay attention to that. Always. I just don't think it's not even negotiable. They need another wide receiver. They need a ton on defense, and there are interesting wide receivers available. Not that you're going to go after a Devontae Adams, but I don't know, maybe a Christian Kirk, right? Maybe somebody like that can fit what the Panthers do. But there's a ton of veteran players available via free agency. All right, I want to play that. Can we play that clip as we bring in Will?
Comes Leal, had a brace last year against Atlanta. Abada into the area with it. Leal with a shot. Save made by Guzan. To Zaha. Shot. He scores! Welcome to Charlotte, Wilfried Zaha!
A goal and an assist in the 2-0 win over Atlanta United. First of all, that is the voice of Will Palasik at Willie P Style on Twitter. Do you like listening to it?
Oh, always. It means something good happened, Adam. That's really the best part about all that is that it means we're doing well.
Good start to the season. Draw at Seattle without Zaha, who stayed back, I guess, in Europe for the birth of his child, and then showed up and starred in the win over Atlanta United. Is that the rival? Is Atlanta the rival?
Atlanta is the one that I think the MLS wants to at least have as our rival, but I think rivals are born out of so many different things. Obviously, they can be born out of proximity, but sure. I almost feel like games themselves create the rivalries, particularly in soccer. I think of a couple of very intense games early on that we had against New York Red Bulls. We played our first playoff game against them, so there's obviously that particular enmity. Orlando has kind of felt like one after the playoff run a year ago. There's a little bit of back and forth between the supporters in Nashville as well, so I think, rivalries can always be born out of something different, but definitely that's one that the fans definitely want because part of the reason why it feels like a rivalry is the fact that we get such great road support when we go down there. They had about 3,000 or 4,000 last year when we went down to Atlanta, so it's always a fun time.
Will Palasik is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Trip to Miami coming up on Sunday. That doesn't suck either. Is Messi playing in that one or no?
Not sure yet, Adam. They play tonight at home against Cavalier FC in CONCACAF. He had been playing midweek for CONCACAF, and then he sat last weekend for a road match against Houston. I think they'd be less inclined to sit him this weekend because, number one, there's no travel either way for Miami.
Right.
And Cavalier is a bit of a lesser opponent than they had in their first week. They played an MLS squad during their CONCACAF run in the first round, so a little bit different kind of competition for them. So I think, depending on how it goes tonight, I'm guessing you'll see him for a little bit on Sunday, maybe the whole thing. Who knows?
All I know is it's fun. It's fun when you see this kind of talent here. So real quick to Zaha, because when I found out that he was coming over, it was cool when Tim Ream came over from Fulham because Ream's such a great, solid center back and a good fit for what Dean Smith wants to do with Charlotte FC. But Zaha, when I first became a Premier League fan, or if I first became a Liverpool fan, and I'm watching, and I'm like, man, that guy is amazing. Hurt Liverpool in a Palace Liverpool match that I watched. He is dynamite. He is still dynamic with the ball. He's going to have a big year if he stays healthy.
And he's probably really, right now, Adam, only about 65, 70% from in terms of fitness level, just because of the fact that he hadn't played in a while and he had to kind of go back and forth to London. You mentioned going back for the birth of his third child and his first daughter, and also having to do the visa stuff too. So he's kind of been in and out of training over the course of the last couple of weeks. But in terms of just what he brings to the table, not only from a standpoint of wanting to be on the club and with them, he brings so much outside of the white lines. Particularly at halftime, he went up to the guys and said, look, we're not playing fast enough. And you saw the immediate impact of his words from the locker room in the first 10 minutes of the second half. He was very instrumental in the first goal that was scored by Pep Biel. I thought it was an assist like you did, but
it wasn't?
The defender actually got tracked back and he got the last touch on it before Pep Biel. So unfortunately, it does not go in the books as an assist. I thought it was an assist too,
whatever.
but unfortunately, he gets denied a goal scoring opportunity there, or at least a goal contribution. But he does get credit for the big goal, and I think that's the part of it that, from Charlotte FC's perspective, you really love to see.
Can he also play for the Hornets, Will?
I wish. All
right, so it's bad. Oh, I broke Will. I bring up see, that's a Hornets problem. Tell me I'm wrong. It's a Hornets problem. Right?
You're right.
I bring up the Hornets. The internet dies in Will's house.
Just like people's spirits.
Man, we'll effort to welcome Will back whenever the internet has been fixed. But yeah, that's the Hornets have lost 17 of 19. 17 of 19. They might get Cooper Flagg. I've heard that Cooper Flagg would like to avoid playing for the Washington Wizards. The Hornets are only 2 games behind or ahead. Is it ahead or behind? He's back. See, I mentioned the Hornets, and it all went to blank.
Who knows?
All right. So they've lost 17 of 19. How are they still, not to mention some of the margins of victory here, or margin of defeat, how are they still in rebuilding mode?
Unfortunately, it's a critical mass of injuries, Adam. The fact is they have anywhere between 4 or 5 dudes at any given time who they projected to be big parts of their core not playing. And obviously they got rid of a couple of them, or they tried to get rid of at least one of them with Mark Williams' particular situation not going the way that it did. And I think the unfortunate part about it is their bench right now is not at the level that they needed to be to compete on a night-in, night-out basis. They had a good night last night from a bench perspective, but you were also playing up against a team that is very, very stacked in the starting lineup. All 5 of those guys are big-level scorers in the starting lineup, and particularly Anthony Edwards, who had 29 points last night. And just, the one thing they've tried to do to kind of combat that is they've staggered the minutes of their starters to try and maybe combat that part of it. But the problem is their starters right now are playing very heavy minute loads. Miles Bridges is going to, I think, set a career record for most minutes played in his career. And I think, too, even LaMelo Ball, who is not playing on every night, is still probably playing more for a team that has only gotten 14 wins and you'd probably want to see, just because of the fact that you want to make sure that he gets to the finish line healthy. So from this perspective, unfortunately, they don't have the horses to be able to compete with the rest of these big teams in the NBA.
Will Palasik, Willie P. style on Twitter. Real quick to Mark Williams, because that was a debacle. You trade him. He fails his physical. But he had been playing before he failed his physical with the Lakers, and they returned him because I guess you're allowed to do that. And it took a while, but he's back. He's playing. How do you go back and play for a team that traded you? I realize Dalton Connect sort of doing that with the Lakers too, but I think that was a case where they had to give up something to get Mark Williams. How was Mark Williams processing this?
Well, I think he had a rough start of it. I don't think he had the best, I don't want to say mental health, but I just think, anybody from the standpoint of this situation, we would feel some kind of way about walking back in there. I know the players themselves, because there's always this disconnect between the way the players react and the way the front office react. The players love him. I mean, LaMelo loves him. Right. His teammates love him. So I think they liked playing with him. But I think for him, it took him a little bit of time to kind of get himself used to being back here. And I think, too, his defensive issues and struggles are very well documented. He doesn't really do well in drop coverage. There are times where he gets bullied by bigger, more physical centers, and I think that's something that unfortunately has a cumulative effect on the offensive part of his game sometimes. I think he's been a slow starter when it comes to the way that some of these games have gone too as well. He'll end up with a pretty good line at the end of things, but usually by the time that happens, the game is either already very much in doubt or very much not in doubt, I should say, or out of reach. So from that perspective, it's a difficult situation. I don't know if the Hornets have any long-term plans for him. They're trying, I think, to showcase him for an off-season move because I think they kind of, I would say, tip their hand, more than tip their hand, because of the fact that they want to at least get rid of him at the trade deadline. It's a difficult situation, I think, for all involved, and I think they're going to try to get younger at the center position. Obviously, they made their move with Moussa Diabate to try and be somebody who's part of their core moving forward, but like you said, it's not necessarily the best situation for all involved. And the terrible thing about it is, Adam, we really haven't heard from the organization. Jeff Pearson has not spoken since then. Ownership has not spoken since then. So they very much have been silent on what is a particularly awkward issue, to say the least.
All right, one organization that has been pretty open are the Panthers. And, I think there was progress shown by the end of last season. Whether he thought it would play out that way or not, Dave Canales is now on board with Bryce Young as the quarterback. That's a separate conversation as to how they got to where they are, but by the end of the season, I think it was pretty well established that Bryce Young is absolutely going to be the quarterback this year and next year, and we'll see where it goes from that. He's got a lot of growing to do. Free agency is about to start. What's the first thing you think the Panthers should be looking at in free agency?
Any and all defensive playmakers, Adam. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, they've made some big donations for some guys who are, big men on the defensive line. Somebody to be a pair up with Derek Brown. The terrible part about this, and this is almost kind of like why this is my own philosophical way of thinking. I would like the draft to happen first, because you at least have some control over what's going on in the draft. I almost feel like it should be like the NBA. You do the draft first and then do free agency, because I feel like you have a better sense of filling out the rest of your roster with free agency when you know what your draft picks are going to be, because the Panthers don't know whether or not they're going to get Mason Graham at 8.
Right.
And they don't know whether they have to sign a interior defensive lineman, or they have to sign an edge rusher, or if they have to sign a safety, or if they have to sign a linebacker, or if they have to sign a wide receiver or trade for a wide receiver. I think that those are I outlined all the different moves and needs. I also think they have to maybe make sure what they're doing at center is pretty clear and obvious, because while they have obviously the potential to bring in Austin Corbett back or bring Cade Mays back, I think they also want to take the temperature of where the market is, because if they can get somebody on a lower cost who's a higher repute than both those guys, and also somebody who's less of a health risk than Corbett is, maybe you make that move too as well to further fortify what you did last offseason. But Dan Morgan very much made it clear they're looking defense almost all the way. They need to get some more playmakers on that side of the football, because as we know, they were very devoid of that a year ago.
Oh, there is no question about that, and we'll get to that in a second. I actually there's a number of pretty good wide receivers out there in free agency. I think you don't have to go for a big ticket item, but you can go for somebody who can absolutely help you as a third receiver, a slot receiver, whether it's a Christian Kirk or somebody like that. I mean, those guys are out there that you can absolutely bring in. Because I would not draft a wide receiver early. Yeah, everybody else, I mean, you might take one in the 5th round. They might do that either way. But how many defensive linemen do you think you would like to see them add for next year?
I would definitely like
8.
to see them. I definitely like to see them add a big time edge. Obviously,
yeah.
I would not. I'd be okay with anywhere between 2 or 3 guys who can play on the interior, because honestly, outside of Derek Brown, like who's on that roster right now on the defensive side of the football outside of Derek Brown and J.C. Horn that you would consider irreplaceable right now? I don't think there really is anybody. I know they liked Mike Jackson last year. He's somebody who you can maybe obviously add back at the cornerback position, but the defensive line definitely needs a remake and an overload, because particularly that run defense, that's the part of it that really killed things for the Panthers a year ago, because their inability to just get needed stops in the run game was incredibly part of their downfall and shortcomings a year ago.
It's funny. We'll close on this. You go back 2 years when they statistically had a good defense.
Sure,
they were super easy to run on, and I mean, to me, I thought we saw it there that it was going to be a problem, and then you remove Derek Brown from the equation, not to mention injuries that they had to the inside linebacker position. Oh my gosh. And it was the perfect storm to just get absolutely run over game in and game out. So,
and there's been this chicken and egg discussion about, is it the players or is Giro Evero's scheme? People who are defenders of Evero say that the scheme that he runs is very similar to what the current Super Bowl champions ran, with obviously better talent. But I also think, too, that there are parts of that scheme, particularly in the run game, that can be picked apart. And I think that's something that he's always kind of felt like you have to live with some of the things in the run game in order to try and get turnovers and get to the quarterback. My whole thing is, will the Panthers ever get and assemble the kind of talent they have in Philadelphia to make that defense as effective? Or do you have to get somebody in here who can run a scheme that maybe you can do more with less than? So it's an interesting and philosophical conversation. I'm hoping it's better than last year, although, again, I don't know how it can be much worse.
No, it was awfully bad. At Willie P. Style, Will Palasik, voice of the Charlotte, I was going to say of the Charlotte FC, of Charlotte FC. That's not the, although maybe. We're
not Ohio State, Adam. Don't worry.
It's very true. Pride of the University of Missouri, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sir, it's always cool to catch up, man. I'll talk to you very soon.
We'll have to talk Met baseball at some point coming up here, too.
We have Juan Soto.
Yes.
We have Juan Soto. We can just talk about Juan Soto forever.
Man.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
That's Will Palasik at Willie P. Style. All right, when we come back, we will rewind. We'll set the table for tonight. I know people don't want to talk about it, but there's a hockey game. Like an actual, like with the clock moving and score kept. It's not just the trade deadline. There's an actual game to play. Next. It's the Adam Gold Show. I'm Adam Gold. Victoria is on the ones and twos, and we got a hockey game tonight. Hurricanes will play the Boston Bruins. They are not just waiting around, biding their time for Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman or Darren Drager or anybody to announce Hurricanes trades. We have had some trades today, but mostly minor things, nothing blockbuster-ish, because everybody is concerned or interested regardless. I do believe that they will not make a move with Mikko Rantanen because ultimately it doesn't make sense to not get better. And while you can't trade Rantanen and get better, Colorado didn't get better by trading Rantanen. What they got was some cost certainty because they know what they're paying Martin Necas this year and next year. They know what they're paying Jack Drury this year and next year. And they did not know that they would be able to re-sign Mikko Rantanen, mostly because he wanted to get paid what he was worth. And they were not going to exceed like $12.5 million because that's where Nathan MacKinnon is. They have an artificial cap on what another forward would make. They don't have that same cap on what Cale Makar will make in free agency. That number is going to be goofy. Cale Makar is going to become the highest paid player in the NHL when he signs his free agent deal with Colorado. Flat out. Until Connor McDavid signs a contract, and then he will be the highest paid player in the NHL. But they were not going to exceed where McKinnon was for Rantanen, and therein lies the problem because Rantanen wanted a contract pretty similar to the one that Leon Draisaitl got with Edmonton, which was in the neighborhood of $14 million a year. Anyway, with all that said, the Hurricanes, if they decide that they can't re-sign Rantanen when this season is over, and I have no idea if they have received any inclination that they can't, I will simply say this. What you've seen reported from all of the national NHL insiders is the same. Rantanen has told them he's not ready to commit. We've all been in those relationships. Right? We've all been there. You can't rush me into asking you to marry you. You can't do that. 1 second.
May not end wise.
You could.
Yeah.
Right.
May not end.
You could. You could try. And the Hurricanes are not trying to convince Mikko Rantanen to love them.
No.
Because there's no way you can force that. I do believe they have tried to sign him, but they can't force that. But they acquired Rantanen about 6 weeks ago now. It was the second to last Friday in January, I think, right? They acquired Rantanen thinking that he would come into the team, they would have success, he would experience what it's like to be a Hurricane, play as the home team in this building, play with Sebastian Aho, his longtime friend, with guys like Jarvis and Stahl, for a head coach like Rod Brind'Amour, win a lot of games, maybe make a long playoff run, who knows, maybe win a Stanley Cup, and that he would be impacted by that and would sign a long-term deal. It was not, and Greg Wyshynski told us this the other day, they didn't sign him for a negotiating window. But that's what it became right away. That's the way it was framed nationally. And I've already said my piece on that. But ultimately, the Hurricanes are here in a situation, and there's a reason why all those top insiders keep talking about this. Because Carolina has made an effort to sign him. Well, they're not putting on a full court press, but they have made an effort. And what they have been told, apparently, is not ready to do that yet, which is fair. Completely fair. It's also fair, by the way, that he has not been awesome. Because he hasn't been. He's been good. Nobody's arguing that. But he hasn't been, oh my gosh, can't take my eyes off this guy. He's not really that player anyway. So nobody should be surprised they haven't signed him to a contract yet. And they might never be able to sign him to a contract. They knew that going in. This is not a surprise. So, but they do have to figure this out. If they, again, I get back to this point. There's a reason why these guys keep mentioning it. So there are doubts. There are doubts from the player's side. Is this where I want to be? And the Hurricanes have to decide if we don't believe that he wants to stay here. They have two choices. Keep him, roll with it, go as far as you can. And I've already said on many occasions, at least half of the bracket, their half of the bracket, does appear to be gettable. Whether it's the Devils in the first round or the Blue Jackets in the first round. And then Washington, I don't know, maybe Detroit, maybe whoever is the second wild card. If not, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's Columbus. Who knows? Heck, it might be the Devils by the time we get there. Jack Hughes is out for the year. Dougie Hamilton's out for a few weeks. Devils have had some injury issues. So they got to decide where, if he's not going to stay here, again, we don't know, but if he's not going to stay here, they have to decide, when do we want the PR hit? Do we want the PR hit on Friday, meaning tomorrow, by moving him at the trade deadline and maybe getting something that we at least need? Or do we want the PR hit July 1 when, the day before they trade his negotiating rights for a third-round pick? When do you want that? When do you want to swallow that bitter pill? And that is, of course, if they've determined that they're not going to be able to keep him. So they're in a tough spot. But I don't think that they can get anything significant today to make all of the negative press go away or make them better. So I think they're going to roll with Rantanen and see how far they can get in the playoffs. And while I don't think the Hurricanes are great by any stretch of the imagination, I think they can win 2 rounds of the playoffs. And then if you're in the Eastern Conference Finals, literally anything can happen. So that's what I think they're going to do. Roll with what they've got. I actually don't think they'll add anything of significance, but I have been wrong trying to read this organization a lot lately. I thought I knew them.
They like to change it up every now and
then. Then they
again.
were signing free agents and, getting the top available scorer at the trade deadline twice.
New year, new Canes.
Unbelievable. All right, let's rewind. All right. Do a little hoops. Let's do a little hoops. All right, Tyler Zeller joined us, part of the North Carolina Tar Heels radio crew. He will be on the call on Saturday when the Blue Devils come to town. All right, so you won 6 in a row. How do you use the last 6 games? How does this translate to Saturday?
Yeah, I think you look at the end of that game and you see they started attacking the switches better. That when we played them, Pitt did a really good job switching us and we struggled with it. Duke did that. Clemson did it. And then in those last 6 games here, we've done a much better job. Part of that is the reemergence of Lubin inside. He's done a really good job switching on the switches, rolling to the rim and either sealing off the guard or sealing him to the point where you can throw it over the top and you can shoot a layup. So Duke, obviously, probably the best switching team in the league. They have the best defense in the league, too. So they're going to switch. Mowalic will come out and guard. They're going to try to, what we call switching off the ball, put Cooper Flag onto Lubin and try to stay big. We're going to try to raise a shooter so they can't do it. So it'll be a little bit of a chess match, but I think there's a lot to build on in the last 6 games, scoring averaging over 90 points a game in those 6 games and shooting well from 3 and just they look more cohesive and much better, but against weaker competition, and very, very much know that. But, it'll be interesting how we play against Duke, who is obviously an elite team who has a chance to win a championship this year.
I think all of that made perfect sense to me. I did ask Tyler this. I mean, it's a big game. and there are big stakes on this big game. How far in advance do you feel the big game?
It depended on the season. So my junior year, we were different but similar to this team where you're building towards something. We were building towards the ACC championship, and then that game came down to whoever won the ACC regular season title. So you feel that momentum building as you're progressing towards that. But then senior year, we got beat on the last second shot at home. And so we hung on to that one basically since we lost that game all the way through to the final. So it builds for a long time. And I'm sure these guys are holding on to, losing by 18 and being down by much more at their place. They're holding on to it, and they'll be ready to go.
All right, let's get back to the Carolina Hurricanes. Shane Willis joined us. And I think Mikko Rantanen was at the morning skate, right? He skated with the group. But he was the last person on the ice, and people are like, oh, no. It's got to be hard. Has to be hard for him. Has to be hard for his teammates. And I asked Shane Willis, who has been traded in the middle of a season before. I asked him just how hard it is on the players.
It's a weird couple days because, as you mentioned, even if you're a guy that's not going anywhere, you're on edge because you're wondering, is there a move about to happen, one? And then is the move coming in going to be a swing to benefit us to make the final piece so we make this run? Or is it a piece going out the other way that you don't want to lose? So every player is going to have it on their mind, whether they think they're on the trade block or they're a substantial cornerstone piece of an organization, because you want to see what happened. They're not calling every player saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? There's no questions asked in that room, and their job is to mentally prepare, mentally focus on tonight's game. And it weighs a lot on the coaches. It weighs a lot on the players. But you have a job at hand tonight, and that's the Boston Bruins to be ready for, to continue to get wins in the win column and solidify your place in the Metro Division.
All right, so the Hurricanes go into play today, and they are 4 points ahead of the New Jersey Devils in second place in the Metropolitan Division. They also have a game in hand. New Jersey is decimated by injuries. Again, as I mentioned before, Jack Hughes is out for the season. Their dynamic offensive forward. They are in the market for help now in the middle of the ice. They did bring in a defenseman, Brian Dumoulin, who is a prospect in the Hurricanes organization and was part of the trade that brought Jordan Staal to Carolina from Pittsburgh. So Dumoulin joins a long list now of former Hurricanes or former Hurricanes prospects with the Devils. Because Hamilton, Pesce, Nason, Eric Halla is there. But I don't think the Hurricanes will do anything else. I certainly don't think they will do anything significant. They brought in two very good pieces. And if Carolina can even come, 20% closer to where they were before offensively, we're not asking a ton. 20% closer, they could end up in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that would be a pretty good transition year, right? From the team that was the favorite to win the Cup a year ago, but didn't. And a team that they think going forward, they are flush with cash for next year. Not that they're going to spend that in free agency. They could. But they will have basically the ability to do anything they want with the roster in the offseason. They will have that kind of financial flexibility. I think they would love for it to be with Mikko Rantanen, and I think he will be here beyond tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow after the Hurricanes wax the Boston Bruins. Victoria, thank you. See everybody tomorrow.